Hello and welcome once again to Talking Pictures Podcast. I'm your host David and join with me as always my co-host Brian. Brian, how are you today?
You know, David, sometimes I just feel bad for you.
Why? Why?
Because I'm always making you host.
I'm fine. I like doing the intro. It's easy. It's once it's all remembered, it's fine. And speaking of remembering, I actually have to do something, which is remind everyone that we post new episodes every single Wednesday. And if you're not subscribed to us, make sure to do so. Make sure to follow us on our social medias. They're all in the description down below, so you've no excuse not to say, "Oh, I couldn't find your Instagram. I couldn't find your Twitter. I couldn't find all this." It's all down below. So just make sure that you're subscribed. New episodes every single Wednesday, as well as bonus episodes every other weekend. Brian, you normally have a trailer of the week for us. I know you don't normally prepare for it, and you're always caught out on the spot, but have you got a trailer of the week for us?
No.
No? Nothing?
I'm actually caught on the spot. Hold on, give me a second.
I was only joking. Normally you're so prepared for it. You're like, sometimes I've got two trailers. This is the segment of the show now where Brian will scroll through his YouTube, see what trailers came out.
Well, shit, David. Not too many trailers have come out. I'll tell you what has come out.
That's okay.
A load of trailer 2s.
Trailer 2, that's fine, man. And Brian, now, here's Brian with trailer 2 of the week.
Trailer 2 of Juror Number 2. Trailer 2 of Nosferatu. Trailer 2 of Complete Unknown. Trailer 2 of Heretic. Trailer 2 of Moana. Trailer 2 of The Day of the Jackal. Trailer 2 of Conclave. An awful lot of trailer 2s coming up and about. That's just funny. An awful lot of trailer 2s for a lot of content to come out. Anyway, moving on, David. What are we here to talk about?
That was it. Well, funnily enough, even though you just listed off a heap of trailer 2s, we're here to talk about Transformers 1, which is the new animated Transformers film. The last Transformers film we did was Rise of the Beasts, which was obviously kind of like, it was in the live action universe. I don't know, would you describe it as like a continuation or like a continuation of the reboot, or where would you kind of put that Transformers movie?
Rise of the Beast.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to our episode discussing it and you'll know.
You've no time for it here now.
Just to quickly answer. Yeah. It's a reboot.
Yeah. Felt like a reboot.
Yeah. But it's still a failed franchise, David. This franchise, Transformers, failing financially. And that's all because Michael Bay blew it to the ground, because all he did was focus on racist characters, apparently, an overabundance of explosions, and just poor storytelling and cheap dialogue.
When I was looking at, for some info on this, I didn't realize that there were so many of those live action films. Like there's 8 or 9 at least. No, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then Bumblebee, which is 6, and then
7.
Rise of the Beast, which is 7, and then they're currently in the works now of a Transformers G.I. Joe crossover, so that'll be 8 of the live action films.
Remember when I criticised you for being believe it when I see it?
That's one for you. That's I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, only on the condition that they have not even developed a story. They just announced the project because they were so limited on intellectual properties over at Paramount and Hasbro that they have exhausted all resources, so much so that they not only reinvented themselves with Bumblebee, they went back to the Michael Bay formula by doing Rise of the Beasts, and that just didn't do anything good for them. Like, if that movie did financially well, never mind if it was perceived by audiences or critics in a strong light, we would probably have a sequel to that scheduled for 2025 or 2026. But because it was not received too well, like they announced a crossover which could potentially star Chris Hemsworth in an entirely new role because it's live action, so separate to Transformers 1. But Transformers, that whole IP, I did not grow up with the Transformers, and so any awe and enthusiasm I had was first exploited when I was a child, when I saw the trailer of the first Transformers movie with Shia LaBeouf speaking to Optimus Prime through his bedroom window. When I saw that trailer, I don't know what my mind was thinking at the time, but what I thought that movie was going to be, it was not the case. But we got that later in that of Bumblebee. So it came full circle, essentially, because even though I like the first Michael Bay Transformers movie, it's possibly the best or second best, depending on your choice of entertainment. If it's any other movie, well, then I know your taste of movies, but I did enjoy Bumblebee, and I think that is the best Transformers movie, and I still stand to this day that it is still the best Transformers movie, live action or otherwise. But this
That's
one,
fair.
But,
I think.
but
Yeah.
this one came pretty close. Be careful not to talk over me.
It's difficult when we're not in the same room. I thought that sometimes you have to guess. Okay, when is Brian going to end his point now? And then I'm like, yeah, I'm going to jump in here. And you go, I'm not finished, and then you keep going. So I'm sorry for interrupting you, but no, I just wanted to agree that I was in the same boat where the Transformers as a kid started for me at the age of whatever it was, 10, with the live action Transformers movies. I wasn't a action figure Transformers kid or the animated series or anything like that. So it did start for me similarly with the Shia LaBeouf live action films. I think that the Bumblebee film that we got in like 2017, 2018 with Haley Steinfeld, I thought that was a really great reboot. Okay, let's do this again. Let's stay live action, but let's do something a little bit different. And I really liked the kind of lightheartedness to it. I much preferred the designs of the Transformers in that. I think that something that they lost in those live action films is that they didn't look like the vehicles, whereas in the Bumblebee movie you could tell, okay, Bumblebee is a car, when he's in his robot body, you can still see the portions of a car. And it was the same with the other Transformers in it, but then they went back to the Rise of the Beasts. They went back to that original style, and it just, I agree with you saying that they're going back to the well, and it seems so strange. I know that G.I. Joe is probably one of the only things that they can go back to or they can cross over with, but it seems like a well that doesn't have a whole lot of water anyway, considering both G.I. Joe movies weren't well received critically, and neither was the Snake Eyes movie. I don't know if you remember seeing that, but that one was like, it just feels like that has always been a dead franchise that never had anything going for it. So it seems strange to, okay, now we're going to put the two of them together, a failing franchise and what seems to be a failed franchise. So when they announced this Transformers 1 film, and I agree with you, I think Bumblebee is still the best Transformers movie. But this one was quite enjoyable. I don't know if it reached kind of the heights of the first Transformers movie and maybe the second one as well, but those again are ones that you have your nostalgia glasses on for. I saw them when I was a kid. I was at the right age for it, and as well as that, I've lived with those movies for over 15 years, whereas I've been living with this film now for a weekend. So it's easy to say, oh yeah, no, I prefer the other ones, but that might change, I think that I always thought, why don't they make animated Transformers movie? Why don't they focus on that? Why do they have to go live action? And so I thought by going to the animated movie, okay, that's a step in the right direction. But I'll be honest, when this first trailer came out, and you know this well, I was not excited for this film at all. I literally wrote it off. I was like, yeah, no, that just looks too childish for me. I've outgrown Transformers. That's not for me at all. And so we weren't going to do this review at all. It was only the fact that there was nothing really else out. So we were like, okay, I suppose if we want, we can do this, or we can do this, or we can see Transformers. We ended up seeing Transformers, and I gather from this, the fact that we're doing this now, we both enjoyed it.
Well, when I first saw the trailer, when it came out, I didn't think too much of it. I didn't get any goosebumps, and I didn't get any excitement beyond the fact that it's a new Transformers animated set in Cybertron with new voice actors, notable famous voice actors. So the more names you get, the more I'm gonna linger my eyes on them. And I asked you about it, and yes, you said I feel like I've now outgrown Transformers because it just looks so childish. And you're not the only one. A lot of people who I follow have mentioned that it does seem childish, and rightly so. And that is why this movie is tanking at the box office. This movie, it's made recently 75 million on a 120. I'll find that up for you. But when I first thought that it was okay on the trailer, you actually yourself, David, convinced me, you know what? He's right. This trailer feels like a Nickelodeon type of situation. This feels like, of course, they have some money behind it because they're putting a marketing campaign behind it. So that fact, that knowledge of knowing, it's convincing me that yes, this would play in theaters. But
I didn't think that the marketing was huge either. I think that that's maybe a cause or a reason as to what you're about to say now, obviously, when you're looking up the numbers there. But I feel like zero marketing. I feel like the marketing was really, really, really lacking for what seems to be a high enough budget animated film, you know?
technically, the animation actually looks simple and straightforward. There's a lot of it, but it was straightforward. But what the point I'm trying to make before I get to the box office accuracy, I took it off my Letterboxd watch list, and I didn't seem interested in watching it. And I, through following my various online pundits and podcasters, I was informed that this Transformers 1 was actually being received quite well, that it has a great amount of mature themes, that it was, God forbid, humorous and had some comedic elements, and that it was actually a well-rounded, well-executed story. And so that actually brought back a little enthusiasm for me. And I mentioned that to you once again. You weren't entirely sold on it, and I couldn't disagree with you. But I mean, yeah, there isn't anything coming out that's in lieu of our calendar, which is a real head tinker for our podcast in general. It's like, why do we have to do things and talk about movies that are coming out on the said weekend if we're not really enthusiastic about it? If we're not,
That's something that we try and avoid, is talking about movies that we either didn't like or that we don't have any enthusiasm for, like, because we've done it previously with, I think our most hated one was The Exorcist Believer that we did last year, and it was like the two of us just absolutely shitting on it, like we really, really hated it. Now, I think that it's fine when sometimes, like, say last week when we did Joker, like, it's differing opinions, one being that one person didn't like it and the other one that the other person did, but that's also a big movie. That's something everyone's talking about. So I think it's important that we always try and stay positive. We're not going to talk about a movie that either we didn't like, or if we didn't like it, then we have something to say about it. We're not just coming in to say this was shit, we hated it, this was awful. So that's why initially, and like that, we weren't excited for Transformers 1 for those various reasons. So then, why are we talking about it today? And I think we should get into some of the positive aspects about it. You mentioned it ever so slightly. Oh, do you have the numbers there? Sorry.
Yes, earned at least 111 million from a budget of, 75 to 147 million. And I don't know if that includes the marketing or not, because budgets for
it doesn't normally.
No, it doesn't include the marketing. But in other words, it needs to make 300 million to break even. And it's just not making that. And I don't know if Inside Out is still playing in theaters or not. I don't know what other animated movies are out that isn't The Wild Robot, but this is the only Prime animated film that is out. And if kids are not going to see it, I don't think any adults are going to see it here, for the same reason that we both thought this looks specifically for children. Like, it doesn't matter if you throw in a famous song in it that I don't know the lyrics, David, as you might know, but I can hum it. And Sacre Bleu, David, this movie was actually decent.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the aspects of it. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the voice actors. So there's four kind of five big voice actors. Can I maybe even six?
Can I throw you under the bus and ask you, where do you sit now on Chris Hemsworth voicing Optimus Prime?
Yeah.
Because 100%, David, just like Chris Pratt with Mario, you were not favouring Chris Hemsworth.
No, I wasn't.
And you told me specifically that yourself. If this generational actor, Peter Cullen, is still alive and still working, why would you not get this man to return to voice Optimus Prime in animation, the medium in which he started on in the first place?
Yeah, no, and I will absolutely put my hands up and say, I'll if I'm wrong, I'll always admit that I'm wrong, and I was wrong about this. I initially did have those thoughts of, like, so when someone's voice is so iconic, why isn't that person coming back to voice that character? And the three examples I can give you are the one you mentioned there with Chris Pratt playing Mario, that it should have been the voice actor from the video games. Stephen Downes why didn't he voice the Master Chief in the Halo series? Like, it just didn't make sense to, when he has the helmet on, that it should be that voice, because that is such an iconic voice. Now, they did it right with getting Jen Taylor to play Cortana, but I just felt like the voice is so iconic. And the third one being Peter Cullen to come back as Optimus Prime. Now, having seen the film, I'll absolutely put my hands up and say I was wrong. The story that they're telling is very clearly of a younger Optimus Prime, and so getting Chris Hemsworth to voice him, a younger version of him, that makes sense. And what I really, really, really appreciated and enjoyed about his performance is that slowly over the course of the film, he really embodied, I think, Peter Cullen throughout. I think that as he slowly transitions from Orion Pax to Optimus Prime, he does get that deeper, more serious voice that we all know of Optimus Prime, that Peter Cullen voice. So I was really impressed by that by the end of the film, I genuinely was like, this feels like it's a mixing of their two voices, and you can tell that slowly now over the course of this Optimus's life, he will eventually become that older voice of Peter Cullen.
Yeah, that final speech he gives at the end, 100% augmented and modified, I don't know, with some special effects to audio enhancements, or but definitely his first line of dialogue at the start of the movie to the final line of dialogue at the end of it. It's not a stark difference, but it's a severe noticeable difference that even though it's the same actor, he's changed, character development. Who'd have thunk it? But yeah.
In a kid's movie? Are you crazy?
Yeah, I know, right? So I thought, I was always for Chris Hemsworth voicing the character because, yeah, it's a new generation, it's a new cast. I don't even look at this as a prequel to any of the movies we've gotten. It's an origin story to the lore of the Transformers. The fact that this movie starts off with Megatron and Optimus Prime as friends with different names, as minors, that minor bots, that alone stands in its own realm of continuity. And so I was perfectly fine with Chris Hemsworth voicing the character, and I was all for him doing the G.I. Joe Transformer crossover live action franchise should that ever get picked up, because he was announced to be part of that. That could be as real as fake as anything else, or it could just die to the ground, just like how Paramount itself is just dying to the ground. But yes, we all liked Chris Hemsworth as Optimus Prime, or I feel more quicker to call him Orion Pax rather than Optimus Prime.
I think that throughout the film he is, Orion Pax. I think that's fair. Like, it is very much the origin story of both of those characters, D16 becoming Megatron and Orion Pax becoming Optimus Prime.
So in the conversation of voice actors, equal to Chris Hemsworth was Brian Tyree Henry as D16, who we all know to be Megatron. In Transformers movies, we always have the next character, the next Transformer, the next Autobot or machine or alien. I don't know what to call these things, so I'll settle for character. It's always Bumblebee. But in this,
he's always the number two. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
That's a better one. The number two. So the number two here is in fact Megatron, the character who would be Megatron, the villain of the lore. And I was more in favor of him voicing this character than Chris Hemsworth because I knew Brian Tyree Henry was capable of bringing that particular voice to this character. David, I don't even know how to describe it. Gravitas.
I know what I was about to say. Gravitas, exactly. That was what I was going to say. He has that. He can embody the gravitas of what the character needs.
It's his deep. It's his deepening voice. It's a very heavy voice. It's a very large voice. And I was introduced to Brian Tyree Henry not in Atlanta, but in a very small role. If Beale Street Could Talk, and only from then on he just exploded. So. And
he's not a stranger to doing the voice work either, because he obviously does Miles' dad in the Spider-Verse movies.
Yeah, he does. And you're quicker to think of all the other voice actors, and you just forget that's him. I really liked him in this. I really, really, really did. There's nothing wrong I can say about him, the actor. Another actor in this movie voicing the character was Scarlett Johansson. I think it was very straightforward, but also I think, you know, whether you see an actor playing a role or you hear an actor's voice in a character, you still associate, well, you know that is the actor, therefore whether you can recognize their voice or not, you still associate that actor to that character. So of course, I associate this Alita as Scarlett Johansson voicing the character. And while some actors voicing animated characters can fall under the line of being forgotten, not because the character is badly written or not because the voice actor isn't good. I thought she blended with the character so well that I would be quicker to remind myself this is Chris Hemsworth, but not that this is Scarlett Johansson. And I think
I know what you mean.
And I think because she was so against the guys in the start of their adventure when they all get trapped in the train and she's trying to stop the train and report them. She has her own agenda to bring herself back up the ranks. The fact that she's not a known character in any of the live action movies we've been exposed to before. So I thought she stood out quite well in a nice way. You know, she's not the best female protagonist or anything like that this year, but she just stood out. What did you think about her before we talk about the guy who voiced Bumblebee?
I think that the way I'm trying to describe it is that, like, not that she blended in, but just that, like, she didn't stand out. You know, she didn't give a vocal performance that really stood out where you go, oh, that was great. You know, I really like this character. I think that she just fit into her. She slotted in rather than standing out. I think that both Chris Hemsworth and Brian Tyree Henry, they fit into their roles but stood out because they gave great performances. I'd say that on the other end of that spectrum is Keegan-Michael Key as Bumblebee. And I think that maybe from the trailers, it was actually Bumblebee as a character that I was too worried about becoming the too childish one and me outgrowing that aspect of it. I just think that, to move on from Scarlett Johansson, that Keegan-Michael Key might have just been miscast for this. I just didn't really enjoy him as Bumblebee, because in the same way that you said there about like how Scarlett Johansson and Chris Hemsworth, like, you can kind of forget that it's them. I just, every time he spoke, I was like, this is Keegan-Michael Key. And I really enjoy him as an actor. I like him in a lot of roles. It's just in this one, I couldn't get out of my head that it was him and not the character of Bumblebee.
I wrote this down here. So,
referring to the notes,
because this is the one that's like, I have the most direct to say for an actor's voice in this movie. And the character Bumblebee in this movie, Transformers 1, could have had a totally different name and be a totally different character, whether we've been exposed to in previous iterations or not. And I believe that this character is that character, and not that this character could have been Bumblebee, because of the voice and his mannerisms from the actor Keegan-Michael Key. Because the depiction of Bumblebee in this movie is not who I perceive Bumblebee, the character, in a general sense to be. How I perceive Bumblebee is Dylan O'Brien voicing the character in the 2018 Bumblebee before he loses his voice. Yeah. That is how I perceive Bumblebee. Not this here. I perceive Bumblebee as the loyal young soldier ready for action but has a moral sense of duty and empathy and care. And he's the perfect profile to be the avatar for the audiences in any Transformers adventure. And he was that in most of the Michael Bay Transformers movies. And he kind of, he was obviously in his own movie. And so he became so well known for audiences to look at him as the go-to Transformer to identify with more than you would with Optimus Prime, because Optimus Prime is the Gandalf, whereas Bumblebee is the Frodo. Bumblebee became so well known that he was actually limited in screen time in Rise of the Beast, and they tried to fake kill him off in that movie and shed some light on Pete Davidson's character and
to switch it.
And I don't mind that at all. So long as you put your own spin to it. So I saw the character of Bumblebee in this trailer and then in this movie, knowing that it was Keegan-Michael Key. You know, I knew. I mean, how do I phrase this? When I heard the cast announcement for this movie, I was not turned off or faced any concerns with anyone, and that did include Keegan-Michael Key. I thought, oh well, cool, yeah, interesting choice, right? And I wasn't concerned in any way the slightest.
Like I said, I really enjoy him in a lot of other roles.
Yeah, it was just when I watched the movie, I realized, you know, no matter how much I like this guy, this is just not how I would expect Bumblebee to be. He's a bumbling, naive buffoon, always cracking jokes and trying to impress the girl and always trying to get into the action and has, like, when at the end when he's captured with D16 and tied up and he's trying to get him to not keep getting back up and to get himself in more trouble, like, that's the most I'd expect of B, but you only get that for like once and then that was it. So what were you going to say?
I always see Bumblebee as the youngest Transformer, but not the childish Transformer, if that makes sense. You know, like that if all of the other Transformers are the adults in their 30s, he's the one who's 17, just that, you know, he's still a kid, but not like childish. That's how I always know. So the way you described him as Dylan O'Brien, that's kind of how I always saw him as well. Like that him and Sam, Shia LaBeouf in the first film, that they were buddies because they were like of a similar age, you know, in their respective.
But Bumblebee felt
forms.
much older in this movie. He felt of similar age.
Yeah.
Like he could have been younger, obviously, and he was shorter to imply that message, but he still sounded older, and that's not because Keegan-Michael Key voiced him. But I feel like I've been ripping on the character Bumblebee. I thought he was fine. I liked Keegan-Michael Key voicing the character. I didn't like the whole badassatron or any other silly stupid joke under that sense, you know, the type of jokes that were really to try and make younger kids laugh,
geared towards the younger audience, and you have to take those with the other stuff, you know, like it is at the end of the day, it is a movie for kids.
You won't say that for a lot of Pixar and Disney, most of Disney movies, but what I appreciate is a mature joke in the childish joke is B keeps on saying that badassatron in that thick voice, and he has to stop himself and freeze and say it as if he's that
he can't move with it.
Alita interrupts him saying that, I'm going to need you to stop saying that, you know, or to leave her alone. Like that was the adult telling the child to stop messing, and so you need those mixture of generational jokes to feel the appreciation for it. On the topic of mature jokes, Orion Pax about to give Darkwing the middle finger, and it cuts away to him nearly punching him, but D16 stops him and he says, "Allow me, you know, I'll hit my friend because that's me covering him." I'll hit him less hard. D16 gets punched anyway, but that joke for mature audiences about to give the middle finger, and for kids to go oh and put their hand over their mouth. Did you see what he was about to do? You know, those type of I appreciate that, because the way to set it up, he it's like a Jack in the Box, and he was about to rig up. So I like that. I like a few mature jokes in a kids movie because it makes it feel like it's welcome for all.
Well, I think that, you know, I do appreciate those kind of jokes as well, but what I actually appreciate more is that when you make a movie that it seems like a kids movie, but the story is actually engaging and there's an arc between the characters, that's what will keep adults involved. And I think that was present within the film, with the fact that Orion Pax, Optimus Prime, and D16 Megatron, they start out as best friends, you know, and over the course of the movie they slowly fit into those roles of Optimus and Megatron, that arch enemies, you know, the leader of the Autobots, the leader of the Decepticons. Like, so I think that their story over the course of the film was good. The only thing I wish is that I actually wish that the film was longer. It's an easy hour and a half, and I felt like it was really, really fast. I feel like it was going at a breakneck speed. I feel like there was no time to slow down. And it was when they were in the mine and the mine started to fall apart, I was like, this feels like it's just going so fast. Like we're just going into it. Like there was no moment to take a breath or anything like that. And so because of that, I felt that D16's evolution into Megatron after he finds out that he was lied to by Sentinel Prime, I felt that was just a little bit too quick. So I would have liked to see a little bit more time dedicated to him becoming Megatron, you know? I don't know if you felt the same or if you felt that it was adequately done. I just felt like I would have liked to see a little bit more of that, actually.
How I felt about that, I have something to say. When you say that the movie's going through quickly and it's pacing, I can agree to the point that I only before I'm enjoying their relationship, and that I'm not looking forward to really them two becoming arch enemies, because I like their relationship. And I thought they did a very good job to build a strong case for why this best friend will become the biggest enemy to the protagonist. Why does D16, who appears to be the best friend to Orion Pax, become the biggest enemy? In like, why? Like, it's like me and you becoming enemies. Like, it's like, why? What's the case against that? What's the cause for it? And I thought they sprinkled an awful lot of strategically calculated breadcrumbs and foreshadowing why and how he does become the villain, such as looking at Sentinel Prime as the hero god leader of Cybertron. Well, it's not called Cybertron, but of their planet. Therefore, deepening the wound when he learns of his betrayal. And I thought that made sense. And I thought that D16 came across as the tough guy in the group. You know, you have the jokester, you have the leader, you have the, how would I describe Alita? She's the calculated
one plays by the rule book.
I was going to say calculated, you know, but following policies, following protocol, and D16 is the tough guy. So naturally, it makes more sense to make that tough guy character turn out to be the villain of the entire lore of this IP.
Well, I think that his...
Oh, I'm not done. Sorry, don't interrupt me.
Sorry.
No, joking. Oh, seriously, don't interrupt me. But I had this in my head to describe it. All right, so this movie started off for D16 at 0%, and it ended with him at 100% as Megatron, right? And it started jumping from 0 to 5, and as we continued, 5 to 10, and as we kept going, 10 to 15 and 10 to 20. And when we got to them gaining their cogs, the cores, whatever you call them, the blue circles that get inserted in their chest to...
The cogs, yeah, you're right.
Oh, I was right the first time. So the ability to transform. I think I needed that to suggest that D16's cog had not much, but just a slimmer of contamination or corruption. Not that it would... No. I see your face, but don't speak. Not to determine his decision making and his goals, which ends up being that of Megatron's. No, it doesn't direct him in his destiny. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just an example of what I'm saying. Of maybe I needed a little bit of extra foreshadowing into it. Because the pacing for his development from D16 to what eventually will be Megatron, you know, at the time when they gain their abilities to transform, we're at 30%, right? And then they leave Lawrence Fishburne and they go down the hill, and when they make it to the bottom and everyone has gained their struggles to transform, it was D16 who takes out one of the foes and kills him. You know, fires a shot at them and kills him, and he comes in roaring a praise, and that was great. When you know the other characters were like, "Oh shit, did he just kill him?" But they don't say anything. It's just their initial reaction of witnessing a murder, essentially. And as after that kill shot, he takes the proof from Orion Pax, and he says, "Hey, don't worry, I got this, buddy." Because Orion Pax was given the proof that Sentinel Prime is a phony and a traitor and a liar. Well, D16 takes that, right? And he says, "I got this," and then let's go.
Kind of, he wants to be in the leader position now.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say, which has taken me like 3 minutes, is that...
I'm not letting
Yes, you're not. Is that D16, I think, was at like 30%. And when he turns back to Orion Pax and he says, "I got it." I'm exaggerating, of course, but he says that in a very antagonistic manner. And I felt like, whoa, when did we get to 50%? Like,
yeah, you jumped just too quickly.
I thought that leap was just a bit too far from my liking, and my liking was the pacing they originally set up, because no way. Like, if you said that to me, I'm like, bitch, please.
I think that the reason why he turned is absolutely fine. I think that it's an interesting way to have two characters find out the same thing but have completely different reactions to it, and that's obviously how Orion Pax deals with finding out that like you said there, Sentinel Prime, the hero, the prime that they all look up to and is trying to make the world better, has actually betrayed them and has lied to them and has forcibly taken away all their cogs at birth. They haven't had a choice in their own lives, and it's Orion decides, okay, let's go stop him and let's give the people back what they have, and going about it, you know, we'll prove to everyone that he's the bad guy. Whereas D16 goes, no, let's kill him. He took this away from me and we're going to kill him. So I think that the reasoning behind why he changed into Megatron was absolutely fine. It's just how quickly that did happen. Now, something that you said there as you're going, you mentioned about like if there was something in the cog that he got that switched him over, like that would have, I don't know if I would have liked that. No, corrupted him. That's not what I would have liked. I did actually come up with this as you were speaking. What I thought would have been interesting would have been, had they been in that cave and Lawrence Fishburne, what if there had only been three? What if there had only been three cogs? And he's the one that says, you know, no, yous take it, yous all get it, or he's, by some circumstance, he's pinned down or something like that, and he, even though he starts out as the muscle of the group, he doesn't get a cog. There's only three, the other three get it, and then, you know, Orion comes in, he's now physically bigger than D16, as well as the other two are physically bigger now than D16, and they save him. And then over the course of the movie, he kind of is resentful towards that not only has he always not had a cog, now he has missed out on another opportunity. And then that would be the way that he would slowly, you know, he kind of then starts to resent Orion as well. And then towards the end, as he gets to Sentinel Prime, maybe he shows that he can do it without the cog. He can take down this Prime. That's how powerful, that's why he is worthy of being a leader to the Decepticons, kills him, and then takes Megatronus's cog, puts that in himself, and that's when he fully upgrades into Megatron. That's how I just thought that there. I thought that would have been really interesting to see. Just for an arc of a character.
Yeah, I like a bit of that. I think the movie would either have to be an extra half an hour longer, or that they need to be in that room getting that exposition dump and getting their transforming cogs quite a lot earlier than they did in the movie, to allow the time for D16 to go from no, you take it, to becoming resentful, to becoming eventually kidnapped as the movie progresses. I think the movie would need to be longer.
But that was to my original point. I think the movie did need to be longer, because I just would have liked to see that, like you said there, how he went from 5 to 10, 10 to 15, and then all of a sudden to 50, you know, like this huge jump. I thought that also was a huge jump, and I would have just liked to see that progression just take place a little bit slower, or just see the relationship between Orion Pax and D16 just devolve a little bit more, just through a few more conversations, a few more instances and stuff like that, because it felt like it was just them getting the cogs, they're down the hill, he takes the map from him, one scene at the fireplace, and then the whole thing with the army outside, and now he is Megatron, essentially, with Megatron without the name.
Yeah, I like how they kept on, how can they make this guy's best friend become his worst enemy, and how did they sprinkle that in there? And continuing on the fact that they're told the same thing, but they perceive it differently, and it directs them in opposite destinies. And that when Orion Pax checks in on D16, he's being a good friend, checking in on his buddy to see how he is, and D16 is nothing but hate. He's thinking about nothing but rage, and that he feels betrayed, and he wants to kill Sentinel Prime. Like, doesn't want to stop him, doesn't want to imprison him. He wants to kill him. Not a popular word to use in an animated film targeted towards a much younger audience.
Normally it'd be like, I want to destroy him. I want to. You'd use end him. That you wouldn't say kill, but no, he fully says it. I'm pretty sure he says like, I'm going to kill him.
And I thought they did that a few times. Every time Orion Pax checks in on D16, D16 does not acknowledge Orion Pax as his friend. He's always focusing his attention on killing Sentinel Prime. Like, when they rescued him as prisoners, Orion Pax comes in and unties his restraints, and he says, "You okay, buddy? Are you hurt? What did he do to you?" And D16, the first thing he says, "Nothing compared to what I'm going to do to him." Like, it's like if you came to me and he says, "You okay?" It's like, I hate this one guy and I'm gonna kill him so badly. He doesn't.
It's all just focused on him.
He doesn't even ask how Orion Pax is doing, and that one moment when they've come across the High Guard, where we see Starscream and Shockwave and Soundwave, when D16 has overpowered Starscream and he's won the trust and loyalty of the surrounding crowd, and they're all gathering around him, and there's one slow motion shot of Orion Pax looking at D16 where he turns his face towards the viewpoint of Orion Pax, and he sees his eyes have gone from what originally was yellow to orange to a certain point, but has gone to, I don't know if it was red, but it has gone more vibrant, more colourful in the orange scale, in the orange colour template. That he obviously just, did straightforward showcase of him turning more villainous. On the point of with the voice actors, of course, quickly, Steve Buscemi, Starscream, perfect.
Yeah, a delightful little surprise.
That's more than perfect. Even when D16 has him in a chokehold and his voice is becoming more undone, that you can't hear him, I thought Steve Buscemi was great as Starscream. I thought Lawrence Fishburne was quite acceptable as Alpha Trion. That I know it's Lawrence Fishburne, but his voice lends himself to that of a robotic character. That
he fits that. I'm going to deliver the exposition.
He should have gotten the and in this credits, not John Hamm. John Hamm is more suited to get the with in the credits.
Yeah. I love John Hamm. I like John Hamm, and I didn't recognize him at first, so I had to look it up afterwards. I was like, who was that? I could recognize the voice, but then I was like, oh, that was John Hamm. I wish I had known that. Like, I would have appreciated it more, I think, had I known it was him.
I think at the start, I definitely couldn't. I knew it was him. I knew he was voicing Sentinel Prime, but at the start, I couldn't identify his voice. Like, I knew this is the character that John Hamm is voicing, and out of all the voice actors, I knew that he was the one who I couldn't recognize the most. But I think as the movie went on, I could pinpoint it. Yeah, there's the John Hamm, and I think it was quite obvious based on lore of Sentinel Prime, or at least the third Transformers movie directed by Michael Bay, that, well, Sentinel Prime's going to be a traitor.
Yeah. You do have to kind of suspend your prior knowledge of, well, I know that this guy doesn't turn out to be the nicest guy of all the Transformers. So, yeah, it was kind of it's a twist for the kids. It's not for those of us who know Transformers lore. That there's loads of us, don't worry.
Yeah.
Well, actually, my Transformers lore is relegated to the films, so I don't know anything other than if I haven't seen it in a film. And even so, it's only those first two, maybe third film. I don't know much about the stuff after that.
Yeah. So I liked all the voice actors, and I appreciated when I was saying that D16, he's always focused on killing Sentinel Prime. And Sentinel Prime is no joke. If he's in a winning position, if he's in an advantage, he's going to brag about it. He killed Alpha Trion, and he's torturing D16 and
killed all the other primes.
Yeah. And I like that in the scenes where we're with the bad guy, that the next protagonist we're following there is the soon-to-be bad guy. Because D16's he has his hands to hide behind his back, but he's still getting up and facing up against Sentinel Prime, and he's about to be executed, and the big save the day situation, all that good action sequence, and I like where we were getting to a point. Great, now we've had the action for the kids, but I want to see some consequences here. Time to introduce some mature themes, because when it comes to animated films, one thing I want is some mature content, and I think blowing a hole in your best friend's chest, quite shockingly mature, I would say, and he falls off the cliff like Ra's al Ghul in Batman Begins, and he grabs him. D16 stops him from falling, and you see, of course, why did you make me do that? Why did you get in the way? And the movie didn't let me have enough time to think, because all I could just see is that Orion Pax is non-responsive, and what's going on with D16? Why is the screen just getting a little bit too dark for me to see the goodness in this guy? And
oh no, the consequences, they're becoming too mature.
Yeah, and I thought that what I appreciated the mature themes in this situation, I still also thought it's still a bit of a leap to go from saying I'm done saving you and dropping your friend to die. That was not I don't know if this is a strange thing to comprehend, but that was not as much of a leap as the one I previously mentioned, who's saying I got it more aggressively. But
I thought that it was a situation where obviously he tries to shoot Sentinel and Orion gets in the way and obviously takes the bullet, and he kind of has that moment where he's like, why did you do that, like you said,
showing remorse, having sympathy for his actions.
But I doubt that him dropping him, like, he does have that, like, I'm done saving you, no one's going to question if I let you drop. No one sees me drop you. I could just say that you let go. There's no nothing behind it. But also,
I didn't think that at all. I didn't think
that's what I thought. But I also thought then that, like, he sometimes you can run through a lot of scenarios in your head, and I would think that D16 would kind of have him in his head, like, I shot you. Even if you forgive me, I can't forgive myself for what I've done. I've shot my best friend.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is just get rid of him entirely. Like, I couldn't live with the fact that, like, seeing my best friend every day now with one arm, or that he's going to try oppose me. Like, just get rid of the problem, or just get rid of him, and I'll just deal with that myself then.
Do you know what I thought of it? This is my final thought on his decision to drop him. It's him doubling down on his actions. Because maybe he subconsciously, internally feels like there's no going back, because he still wants to kill Sentinel. So just like, what's her name in House of the Dragon? Olivia Cook.
Oh, Alicent.
That's it. I thought it was Alice. Yeah, Alicent. Just like Alicent being informed that she was wrong initially, she doesn't succumb to morals and defeat and being the cause of a war's death.
She doubles down.
Yeah, she doubles down, and I think that's what D16 does here. he doubles down on his action because, well, god damn it, you brought this on yourself. And he's not going to place any blame on himself. And he drops him and lets him go. And I think he'd need an existential crisis to feel some remorse again. And while Orion Pax is falling into the planet's core, we are shown the inserted sequence of D16 getting into the real mature themes of literally ripping Sentinel Prime in half. And that, well, I appreciated that. Don't know what you thought.
I thought, it's if you're going to have this guy become Megatron, like the overarching villain of this entire franchise, you have to kind of give him a kind of there's no coming back from this moment. And so ripping his childhood hero in half because he betrayed him and sent him on this path, like that, there is no going back from that. Like, he tosses his friend, shoots his friend, tosses him off the thing into the abyss, thinking he's never going to see him again. It's like, right, okay, I'm going to rip my hero apart and become the leader now. Like, there is no coming back from this. And that's kind of like, it's no coming back from this in his eyes, and also probably from the audience's eyes. Like, you kind of, once he does that, you go, okay, now he's Megatron, you know. And he says that himself. Like, he even says it, like, oh, my favorite Prime was Megatronus, and so now he is Megatronus's cog in himself. You know, he's killed one hero, he's taken on the name of one of his other heroes. Like, he's too far gone now. He won't ever come back. He can't be redeemed to the Autobots.
Sentinel Prime was a phony anyway.
He was, yeah.
But do you know something interesting from my experience? Thought that was the end of the movie.
I didn't think there was anything. You thought it was going to be a cliffhanger.
I thought, as this movie was nearing the conclusion of that scene, killing the proposed villain and the birth of a new one, and apparent death of the hero. Of course, it's not the death, but like, it ends with him, Orion Pax, being granted the matrix of leadership and the I don't know what magic powers it gives him, but it just makes him a little bit bigger than the rest of the alien robots. But I thought when D16 declared himself to the crowd, I am Megatron, and the essence of the Primes who are speaking to Orion Pax from their death, saying, you are now Optimus Prime. And I thought when he pulls an avatar and opens his eyes with the screen up close to his face, cut to black. Genuinely thought that was the end of the movie. And I thought it was bold. I thought it would have been a bold choice to end it there. And phew, we have a few minutes left. And I think it was nice to see that continue. And I thought the confrontation between them two was much quicker than the confrontation with Sentinel Prime. I don't know if that was just by choice or by how the pacing went, but I thought that confrontation was done and dusted quite quickly, to go from the start of their fight, you know, you were given the choice, you were bestowed the matrix, to saying you were banished from this part of the planet. And
yeah, that's why I think it had to be a little bit shorter, because like realistically the goal for Sentinel Prime was to kill him, or you know, to kill Orion Pax at D16, and vice versa for D16 to kill Sentinel. Whereas with Optimus, like, he doesn't want to kill Megatron. In his eyes, he still sees him as his friend and wanting to redeem him, I'm sure. So and we also know that the two main, the antagonist and the protagonist, aren't going to kill each other. You know, that they have to be there for future movies, for future possibilities. So that's why it was shorter, and it ends in a banishment, and there was no fighting back. He just says, you're banished, and then he goes. You know, there is no fighting back in that. There isn't a fight to the death. He just kind of accepts it and goes.
Yeah. I liked in the middle of that battle when D16 is destroying the city. It was just before Orion Pax came back as Optimus Prime, that Starscream shouts in the middle of the crowd, all hail Megatron. When Starscream was originally introduced, I should have said this when we were talking about Starscream. Now I'm going back on myself, like, very unprofessional. But I thought, wow, they're introducing this depiction of Starscream in an honorable position, a leader of a group of vigilantes trying to take down the real villain of this movie, because he's the leader of them. They're in battle constantly, and they're threatening the characters, not just Optimus Prime's to be, but also Megatron to be. And it not only just solidified that he needed to lose his little scruffle with D16, we also needed to see Starscream run away from the fight when they were attacked, and that he was also still captured with the crew, and that he's scuffed off by Sentinel Prime when he's given the chance to talk. He's like, yeah, you're not that important to talk to. And so that went quite high. That position of Starscream from an ordinary point to the Starscream we know from the movies, I thought that was done quite well. And I won't change it to anything differently, because I am not the writer of this movie. I would have accepted it if they stuck to him remaining in an honorary position, you know.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to prequels and stuff like that, they have to walk a fine line of like, do we end our characters in the same way that they are presented in other media? Because it would have been very easy to keep Starscream like that, but there is some element of it that, like, no, we want to give him the voice. You know, he starts out as a completely normal speaking Transformer, and then he gets his throat crushed by Megatron, and then he has the high pitched voice like how Starscream has, like, and you do end with both of them becoming Megatron and Optimus Prime. The only thing I was surprised they didn't do it, and I appreciate them for doing something different, is not having Bumblebee lose his voice. You know, because essentially then kind of all of the characters are set up in a way that they are now the characters we know, and there's no room for them to, if there does come a sequel, that there is room for them still to grow. You know, are they just going to be the character now? You know, and there's no development for them still to go through. So I'm glad that at least with Bumblebee, that is something that they can eventually get to, of him losing his voice. But they do have to walk a fine line of, okay, what way do we end the character? Are they going to be how they are perceived in other media, or are they going to be, is there still room for growth? You know, like, I think that was one of the big challenges that the Solo film had. Like, do we end the Solo film to be that he is Harrison Ford, he is Han Solo now? Or I remember it being very evident, it was one of my complaints about the Hunger Games prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, that President Snow, that he, at the end of that movie, he just seemed like, okay, now there's going to be no development between here and the next 60 years when the Hunger Games like starts. You know, he just seemed like he ended exactly how he was supposed to be. So I think that it's a fine line that they have to walk with prequels and stuff like that. But
well, I think just on that note, when you're dealing with movies that could be considered prequels or in continuity before the events we first come to know the franchise, like essentially most of the characters we've come to know in this movie end up in the positions we expect them to be. Megatron, Optimus Prime, Starscream, even Sentinel, even though he dies. The only one who doesn't is Bumblebee. And that is something they would do eventually if we get a sequel, because they can't just cramp it all in the one. And when on the point of Solo and the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Ladders, that you need to, you're not gonna get another opportunity to continue these developments if your movie does not do well. And if you've no intentions of a sequel anyway. So Solo did not do well. We've not gotten a continuation. The Ballad of Snakes and Ladders is not getting a sequel because that's just the one book. So they have to end it there. They have to force the conclusion that this young boy who seemed to be a promising Boy Scout turns out to be the evil Hitler Nazi that he's destined to be. Because if we don't see that at the end of this movie, we're not satisfied as an audience.
Yeah, that's fair.
To see that. And as a result, because we've seen most of the characters in Transformers 1 to become what we expect them to be, we are satisfied.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that for Bumblebee because they didn't need to, because they've done it to multiple other characters here. And that's it. Like Alita, I don't know that character from the lore, but if she's a commander, well then even she became a commander in that. So that's what we got. And do I have any other notes? I think the funniest thing in this movie was at the very start when Optimus or Orion Pax is caught by the two security guards, and they're taunting him that he can't even transform, and he's going, "Oh yeah,
that was actually quite funny."
Well, watch this. We get an insert shot of him twisting his hand, and an insert shot of him crouching his chin against his chest, and then another insert shot of him tapping his legs together like Dorothy. And the music is rising up, right? Quite intense. That we're about to witness something gloriously magnificent, and no, just a sudden stop to that goosebumps inducing scene, and you just see him already. He's already running away. You don't see him turn to run away. He's gone already. It's like those insert shots where like a facade put on display, distracting the guards while he secretly tries to run away. You know, like the way to set that up, it was just quite funny. More funny for adults to notice in the language of film rather than kids noticing it. You know, kids could I think most kids could watch that and just take it as is. You know, they'll think the Badassatron from Bumblebee is way more funnier than that. But because we alone, as understanding the language of film, that setup was just too funny to not even mention it, and that I had to mention it. Like that really made me grin. So that was the best joke in the movie. What about you? Yeah. You anything else?
I wouldn't know what my favorite joke in the film was, but I actually quite enjoyed the initial the race sequence. I thought that was good. I thought I enjoyed that whole aspect of it. I think that was probably my favorite sequence of the film, them participating in the race.
I thought it was alright. It didn't really stand out to me, really.
I liked it. But yeah, no, I think it's a good thing that we both agree that like the worst flaw of this movie is that we both would have liked it to be just a little bit longer, just to give a bit more room for these things.
I think you're wrong there. I think you're wrong there. Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because I thought it was fine. It's based in like any critique I've had at this movie. It doesn't bother me enough to want to change it so I can call it an even better movie. It was
okay,
fine.
Fair enough. Okay.
It was fine, and I think if they had the improvements I thought it could have had, I don't think that would make me want to watch it again. I've only seen Bumblebee once, and that was in cinemas, and I'd be quicker to watch that again. I'd be quicker to watch any one or two of the Michael Bay directed Transformers movies than I would come back to watch this.
That's okay. Yeah, that's fair. I think I to be honest with you, I'm the same. I think I would have liked the extra bit just to flesh out the characters more. But then, if you were to ask me in a year's time, would you rather watch Transformers, the Michael Bay one, the original one, or Bumblebee, or this? I'd be quicker to pick those other two than this one. And I think that's fair for us as adults to say. Like, if you are to ask my 8-year-old nephew, he would probably say the animated one. You know.
One last thing. Did you think the music was similar in the live action movies? I thought there was a few motifs and a few musical elements that were quite similar to the score in the movies, and I don't know if that score is in the original cartoons or any of the original animated content, but I know it was in the movies, and it feels too movie-like and cinematic. Too
orchestral.
Yeah, I really felt like they didn't abandon that. They didn't do away with that. Oh, another last thing. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No,
sorry. What are you going to say about the music?
I just said I didn't notice. I didn't really notice any this is from the original. But then again, I'm useless when it comes to music, so I didn't notice it. But please, one last thing. Your 16th last thing.
D16. Is that a coincidence or forced?
You could almost say it was foreshadowing. But go on.
I was always curious about how they would make these robotic characters look, because audiences have always said, fans of the franchise, why can't we get a Transformers movie set in Cybertron? Well, here you go. It just has to be animated. not CGI as they are in the movies. No, it has to be animated because you don't have that much money, and as a result, it's not making that much money either. But to not make these characters come across as the aliens they are before they copy themselves in color and shape when they look at a vehicle, because if you watch the original Michael Bay movies, Bumblebee,
they come down and they're all grey.
Yeah, they're all grey, they're all skinny, they're not attractive. When they scan the vehicle that they are transforming into, then they gain the colours and the height and the shapes. And I thought, well, how are you going to not make these characters come across as grey and unattractive? And the answer is, well, no, they're still going to look like the way they do even after scanning the colourful vehicles. Bumblebee's still going to be yellow, Optimus Prime's still going to be red and blue, Megatron's still going to be grey, Alita's still going to be pink. That has to be the way. Otherwise, it's just not going to be attractive, But what I was more curious to know was, well, maybe I wasn't thinking about this specifically, but after I saw the trailer, I realized, I thought to myself, these robots have human faces. They have teeth and they have cheeks, and their faces are more humanistic looking, and they're more biological looking. They're more organic looking. They're not. Yeah. They're not created. They're in the simplest terms, they have human faces, and that just sort of steepens it into the fact that this is it's for younger audiences. So as a result, I appreciated all the mature themes in this movie. Going from giving the middle finger to ripping a character in half.
Yeah, it does. It's able to walk the line of both, that it's a kid's movie but with mature themes, and you'll enjoy it whether you're an adult or you're a kid.
Yeah. I have no more thoughts. That's it. I'm done.
No, that's good. Have you got a recommendation for us before we let these people go?
Yeah.
Nice quick
one is the Joe Rogan Experience. Except I've got one specific episode I think people should listen to, and that is the Russell Crowe episode. It was released. I don't know when it was released, but it was a 4-digit episode number, and it's 3 hours long, and I haven't even finished it myself, but I'm just watching it and listening to it, and it's going through his experience. Russell Crowe, growing up in New Zealand and getting his first work and again working really hard, and I'm only like 35 minutes in, and like he's gone from telling a story of how he's had to done like 9 takes of a tarantula going on his chest to make it look like it's going into his mouth, to going into the Icelandic rivers for Darren Aronofsky's film, because if you're in that water for 15 minutes you're dead. That's how cold it is. I just think it's really interesting to see this actor we know as the actor and just get to know him a little bit more, and his voice and his maturism, because he's a veteran now at this stage, and here he puffs up a cigarette and he makes it look cool as well. Like, I think it was the first time I finally thought, wow, this guy makes smoking look cool. Don't get any thoughts though. And I say that as an ex-smoker. But
I've never watched any of the Joe Rogan Experience. I've never watched any of it.
I don't generally watch it either, unless it depends on the guest he has in his studio.
You're watching it for the guest more than him.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the episode just played next in queue on the Spotify, and I just stuck with it. And so I recommend Russell Crowe, Joe Rogan episode. 3 hours long, so if you've got time to kill.
Yeah. I'll recommend then something in that vein. I'll recommend Gladiator, because Gladiator 2 is coming out in the next few weeks. So if you want to get a bit of a brush up on Gladiator 2 before you watch, or if you want to get a brush up on it before you watch it, just watch the original Gladiator.
Jaimin Hansu's not in the second one, so I don't think so.
So you're not going to bother. I'll come on here and I'll review Gladiator 2, and you can just you can nod. Is Jaimin Hansu in it? I'm like, no, not watching it then. 0 stars.
I don't know. Pedro Pascal's in it though, so maybe that's.
Oh, you're back on board. You're back on board. Brian, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Thank you, the listener, you at home. That's right, I'm talking to you, directly to you. Thank you so much for listening. We really, really appreciate it. Make sure that you are subscribed to us on your favorite podcasting app of choice, whether that be Spotify, on Podcast Addict, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. We're available on YouTube as well if you're listening to us there. Hello, YouTube. Make sure that you're following us on all of our social medias. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Letterboxd, we are on absolutely everything. So it's all down in the description down below, so you have no excuse not to find us. But yeah, that ends it for this week. Brian, any final words before we let these people go?
No, just transform.
Autobots, roll out.